Hello and welcome to Global Beehive Talk. And today we have the great pleasure of having Julia Gogak-Koch with us from London. She is the CEO of Academy of Design Thinking. And it's going to be an interesting conversation with you to learn more about your field of expertise and research. Can you say a few words about yourself?
Of course. Thanks, Hans, for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here with you, with Global Beehive. What am I? I am a design thinker, I say. I help people to take the mindset, learn a process and tools, and go and apply it. A lot of people want to do innovation. This is giving them the tools they need in order to approach problem solving and innovation. This is what I do. Apart from that, I'm a journalist as well. So I do a lot of podcasts and writing. And I'm also a grandmother. So this is who I am.
Sounds really, really good. For those who don't know design thinking and the sort of fundamental of that, can you give a little short description in a few sentences what design thinking is?
Of course. Well, design thinking is a very, very common sense approach, I would say, trying to demystify it. It is a creative approach to how to solve problems, how to solve complex problems. Now, we all solve problems in various ways, and the difference that the design thinking has is it puts people at the center and upfront. And that's why sometimes you find it with the name a human-centered design approach, which is the same thing, which means that you think about the people that are involved in a problem, you try and understand their needs, you try and understand the problem from different types of perspectives before you go and solve it. So this is, in essence, what the design thinking has, is about how to find what the real problem is, and then going and finding what the solutions could be.
That's a very beautiful explanation. What I see in the last couple of years is a quite heavy focus in companies about innovation itself, and it usually ends up implementing a lot of processes and tools to actually drive innovation, and most of the time it fails because missing sort of the human approach. Is that something you see as well, that you encounter these kind of companies?
Innovation is about creating value.
Yeah.
You create value by bringing better products, by bringing better services, by bringing better experiences, or by changing the ways how organization works. So this value is about people. And in order to bring that value, you have to involve people. So a lot of people, even in the challenges that they are very technology challenges, they all have people in them. People who will benefit, people who are going to be implementing it. And what the design thinking brings, and this is sort of the difference it brings to just focusing on processes and tools, is about first understanding what are the human needs? What are we creating for? Who are we creating that for? What are their needs, the gaps that they find, the frustrations that they have, but also, sometimes what are their desires? We don't innovate only about needs. Sometimes it's also for desires that we have, for experiences we want to have. And without understanding that, it's harder to come up with solutions that are really hitting the target that you want to. And this is what I think the human-centered approach to innovation, or design thinking approach as a process and mindset for innovation, brings to the scene.
But this must also be very much a mindset or a leadership challenge in many organizations to drive this kind of collaboration. How do you see that?
You just said it yourself, Hans. This is not so much a bunch of tools. There is nothing new in those tools. Everybody knows those tools. It's a toolbox, a mixture. It's the mindset.
Mm.
And the mindset that is there is very much about how do you move from, you are always the expert, you know everything. We know what our customers want. We have read, all a bunch of documents from the marketing literature, and we know what they want. No, you don't.
Mm.
In order to understand and keep your finger on the pulse of the changing needs, you need to explore it. You need to find out. You need to talk to people. You need to get out of your building, be that in Zoom or, when we go out in the world again after COVID, talk to real people. And this is where getting those different perspectives, but moving from that mindset that we know everything to a mindset that probably I do not know enough and I need to find out, which is a mindset of empathy, but also curiosity. And it's a mindset where, you need a certain amount of courage to admit, if you're a leader, that you don't know everything. But hey, that's a fact of life. And this is, that's why it needs this type of mindset shift. The other thing is, you mentioned collaboration. Anybody can come up with ideas. No company suffers because of lack of ideas. What makes it to innovation is when these ideas are implemented. And in order for that to go to implementation, you need all the collaboration possible amongst different functions, among different disciplines. You need the engineers and the IT and the designers and business analysts and everybody else to participate. And the bigger the company is, more silos we create. And this is where we start, chopping up and creating lots of processes which make it difficult for things to be getting out to our customers in time, at a speedy way, in a very agile ways, because we have got lots of stuff in our back office to coordinate together. So this is where design thinking comes, and it's a very holistic approach, I would say. You look at what are the human needs, who are the people involved, but also how does the business operate? What type of processes do we have? What type of regulations do we have, with which to work as constraints? What type of platforms do we have? How you address this? What is the operational flow? So that we can see whether things, are blocked, overlap, have got systems not talking to systems, all these things. And then you make sense of all these data that you have collected and try and define what the real problems are, rather than what you started at the beginning, which usually might be a complex problem with lots of uncertainty, lots of ambiguity, lots of unknowns, and with lots of streams. So unless you deconstruct all of them and try and address them on their own merit, the likelihood of having innovative solutions is bigger.
It's so interesting. We had another talk a few weeks ago with Gary Calkins, who's experts in performance management, and he said something very interesting, that management is about having the answers, but leadership is about having the questions and being able to explore the unknown in some way. And I think that you're quite into that as well, that we need to probably see ourselves in a different perspective and going outside our comfort zone to bring more innovation.
Every innovation, Hans, you are saying it, every innovation starts with a big question.
Yeah.
So encouraging people to ask questions is the start of the innovation. And then once you come to that, that will bring to more questions. And giving people that environment, that courage, where they can ask those questions without having the fear that they might look dumb. They might think that, oh, I should have known this. I'm not going to ask that question. We all have been in those situations. I mean, take it very simple. In a meeting, where you need to ask a question, they say, well, probably I should have known the answer. If I ask, what are they going to think? So creating that environment where people can ask questions is very healthy. And it's really hard to create because, the muscle of asking questions has been atrophied, I think, from when you are a child and you ask 400, 500 questions in a day when you are 4 or 5 years old, to when you grow up, that number of questions goes down and down and down and down, because, at school, you often are asked a question, there is only one right answer, and you answer. You're not there to ask questions, you are there to give answers, and very right answers. And this is how we get used to it. And then we enter into the work of, the world of the work. And then we find out that if you ask too many questions, probably you are troublesome. So you start reining it in. Whereas you want that, you want the mavericks, you want the people with different perspectives. Otherwise, there is no innovation.
A way to communicate with management is probably, make them understand that they need to have that environment of psychological safety in their organizations, where if not, there's no possibility of innovation happening, no possibility of performance being enhanced. And I would call it, creative productivity or productive creativity. Have you found that when applying design thinking, right, there's a shift in mindset of the people that participate in the process, and they lean more towards this productive creativity that we need, for innovation? Would that be the case? Have you observed that?
Yes, indeed. I have observed that a lot. I work with a lot of big companies, and people come to the learning and they get it. And the problem is, it's not about getting it, it's about applying it. It's called design thinking, but it's about design doing, and how you apply it when you go back to your team, when you go back, to your organization. If you don't have the environment where you can apply it, it becomes very difficult. It's very easy to go back to the old way of thinking, especially if you are under stress. We just revert back to what we know. And this is why, you need, if you want it to be adopted, to adopt it, you need to have all the layers in organization championing it, doing it, leading by example, and creating that space, and then the innovation can flow.
That's really interesting. That's really, really interesting. I suppose you've been working with quite many companies when it comes to design thinking and innovation. Do you see that there are certain components in the companies that need to be in place for this to work, or that might hinder design thinking? What is your view there? Are there certain components that are some more like success factors for doing design thinking?
I think it's very much how you get a buy-in from the leadership. If you have learned design thinking and are in a company, you want to apply it, this is, you need to have your manager, your leader, to really also understand what you're talking about. Because we are very much in companies geared towards delivery, and a lot of companies have adopted agile methodology, where the work is developed in sprints of 2 weeks, and you release, deliver. That is fantastic, because, in many companies, it's creating that type of rhythm where you can deliver fast. But you also need to have the time to think, are we delivering the right thing? And this is where the thinking that the design thinking brings, in terms of, have we identified the right problems before we go to the right solutions? Or are we just doing things because, I think this will be good. We go on a hunch, let's do another app because I've seen our competitors doing another app. And then let's go and develop one. And then find out some months later that it doesn't quite work for our customers. And I think it doesn't matter where the idea comes from. Sometimes, yes, you learn from competitors, they have created an app. But again, go back a step and check out with your customers, your people, what are their needs? What might an app help them with? And find out what type of speciality, flavor will your app have in order to make their lives easier. So this is where, the way how we adopt this way of thinking and also bring it in combination with other things that we have in companies. This is the beauty of the design thinking. It's very flexible, very mashable. And that's why it's more of a mindset and approach. whatever process you are using, nothing stops you to think and ask, do I know enough about the problem before I go into the ideation space of creating solutions? And if you've done that and you go a little bit and, you know, talk to real people, that's all what the design thinking at the end of the day has. So, and it you know, it really combines well with agile, with fast path, with lean entrepreneurship. It combines very well, and you know, both of them needs to be together in order to go up to the end of the journey. System thinking also is something that, you know, is needed to understand how the business operates. So it's a very meshable and mixable type of approach, but it's more of a mindset. And I think that is what makes a difference. It's not a shortcut. You know, for the organizations that do it well and have seen benefits, it's like you have to stay with it, persist, use it in a way that really, really brings value, and then you will see value.
Thank you so much for that. What we have seen here in many companies is that the amount of information that is passed on around in the organization is creating some sort of infobesity that is hindering the cognitive skills to see the whole picture and to analyze the situation. And that is very much tied to the status and the prestige of different roles of manager, for example. And we have tried to reduce the information to actually build up this cognitive skills. Do you see that as well? That there's a conflict with sort of the traditional way of managing with lots of information and other things that are hindering creativity in some way?
Well, I mean, all that information, we are going, you know, we are facing a world where we are inundated by data, by information they come from all the sides, wherever we are. There is very good thing about it because we get, you know, the things that we need. But then this is where the key thing, again, this is very much one of the key skills that the design thinking develops, is the critical thinking muscle. You have all these, how do you make sense of it? And this is where the tools that the design thinking brings is, how can we make sense of all the data that we have? How we analyze and synthesize and find patterns, look at clusters, and try and frame problems in a way that makes sense as real problems. So we will have lots of data, we will have lots of information, but sorting through that and looking at patterns, looking and interpreting it in the right way, I think it's a very important thing. You know, I often say that AI is going to help us a lot in terms of sorting the information. You put a keyword and you will get lots of clusters formed. I mean, we can see it from now, how AI can help us get to that. But nothing beats your critical and creative thinking skills, because it's you that are going to be looking at it and say, he said it in this way, what did he mean? What was he feeling when he was saying these words? So it's not just about the words, it's about the way how words are said, it's about the emotions that people have when they are giving you this information. And as human beings, we still have got the upper hand over the AI to interpret it and to make sense of it. But this is where, you know, AI in combination with us as humans will be in a position to make sense of all this information that surrounds us in a better way.
Thank you so much for that. I mean, I think what you're saying here is, I mean, that we need to somehow step outside our comfort zone and actually focus more on our human abilities and human mindset, and going back to that kind of basics to actually leverage and build more value through innovation and other topics. That is all about recognizing the human behavior in all this, and not only trusting processes and tools for doing that, but going back to the human-centric part. And I think that is really, really good learning for all of us. I want to thank you so much for participating in this short video and this short talk. And it's been very, very helpful and mind-opening for me, at least, to learn more about design thinking and also getting a new dimension of how to work with innovation and how actually to get the most value out of innovation by having a different focus. We would like to get back to you someday and maybe probe more into this design thinking, and I hope that it will be all right for a later video as well.
Sure. And I also wanted to add one more thing, again, going to what you were saying. And again, part of the whole design thinking is about how could we communicate the way that we innovate? How do we talk about innovation? That also becomes very, very important.
Yeah.
How do we talk about our findings? How do we talk about our research? And this is where we, again, need to develop that skill of storytelling that we have inherently as humans, but when it comes to the business context, we suddenly forget about it and revert to just PowerPoint slides crammed with information. That also is a very strong part of innovation, because you need to inspire people to follow you if you have an innovation. You need the funders to fund you if you have brought something new. And for all of that, you really need to know how to talk about it. And I'd love to have a conversation with you about that as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your knowledge and wisdom in this design thinking. It's been wonderful having you here and talking to you about this topic. So thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you in another video a little bit further down the road. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Hans and Mario.
Thank you, Julia.
Congratulations on your
Wonderful.
initiative.